You'd think that after 23 years of putting your family first, sacrificing vacations, working weekends, wiring money at midnight, you'd at least get a thank you. Or maybe a warning. But no, what I got was a group text, sent by my younger brother Ethan. FYI, Dad signed the house over to me. Makes things easier if something happens. No context, no discussion. Just done. I stared at the screen like it had smacked me. That house. It wasn't just bricks and wood. It was where I worked 3 jobs to keep the mortgage paid after Dad's first heart attack. Where I slept on a fold-out cot for months while Mom recovered from chemo. It was the place I thought we'd all call home. Turns out it was just leverage to them. Let me back up. My name's Lauren. I'm 48. Single. No kids. I've worked as a senior admin at a law firm in Denver for nearly 2 decades. Not flashy work, but stable. Reliable. Unlike my family. Growing up, I was the responsible one. The planner. The helper. The one who handled Mom's pillbox, reminded Dad about insurance forms, made dinner when Ethan was out partying and my parents were too exhausted to cook. Ethan, he was the charming mess. The golden child with a revolving door of failed startups and shiny excuses. But somehow it was always me who bailed him out. Even when he crashed my car and blamed the brakes. Even when he borrowed $10,000 for tuition and spent it on a weekend trip to Vegas. But this, signing the house over to him behind my back, it wasn't just betrayal. It was a message. I was disposable. I called Dad that evening, tried to stay calm. Hey, I saw Ethan's message. Did you sign the house over to support than me? I wanted to scream, but instead I sat there nodding to myself. Because I finally understood. It was never about fairness. It was about who made more noise. Ethan shouted. I stayed quiet. Ethan failed and demanded. I succeeded and stayed silent. And now silence had cost me everything. For weeks, I said nothing. I kept paying Dad's internet bill. Kept bringing groceries every Sunday. Kept pretending like nothing had changed. Until Mom's birthday dinner. We were at this overpriced Italian place she liked. Ethan showed up late again, grinning like he owned the place. He handed Dad a file folder halfway through dessert. Got the contractors lined up. We'll start remodeling next month, he said. Dad beamed. That's my boy, turning this house into something special. I dropped my fork. What remodeling? Ethan glanced at me, shrugging. Guest house in the back. Maybe Airbnb it. That was it. No discussion, no consideration. Just, we're gutting the only place you ever felt safe. I stood up, left before anyone could say another word. That night, I lay awake replaying every moment, every bill I paid. Every dinner I skipped to cover for Ethan's debts. Every night I cried in silence when Dad told people Ethan was the backbone of the family. And I realized they didn't just betray me. They never saw me to begin with. So I stopped being available. I stopped answering group chats. Stopped sending grocery transfers. When Ethan called 3 days later asking if I could spot him for drywall costs, I said, no. No explanation, no guilt, just no. That no felt like oxygen. But it didn't stop there. A week later, Mom called. Soft voice. Sweetheart, Ethan said you're upset. We didn't mean to exclude you. I stayed calm. You didn't exclude me. You replaced me. Another pause. Don't be dramatic. We love you. But love without respect, that's not love. That's manipulation in a prettier dress. That weekend, I went through every invoice I had. Credit card payments, bank transfers, Venmo receipts, even utility bills tied to the house. Over 8 years, I'd covered more than $42,000 in expenses related to that home. Groceries, plumbing repairs, mortgage top-ups when Dad's pension fell short. I printed it all, bound it neatly in a folder. No threats, no demands, just facts. Then I dropped it off at Dad's door with a sticky note for your records. I'll no longer be covering shared family costs. No signature, no fanfare, just truth. 3 days later, Ethan messaged, you really gonna guilt trip us over money? I didn't respond, because it wasn't about the money. It was about the line, the one they crossed, the one I finally drew. 3 weeks passed, no contact, no birthday messages, No guilt texts, just silence. I didn't know if it was peace or exile. All I knew was it was the first time in years I wasn't waiting for the next emotional withdrawal. Then one Friday afternoon, I got a call. It wasn't from Ethan or Dad. It was from someone I hadn't heard from in years. Aunt May, Mom's older sister. The family outcast. The one everyone called dramatic, unstable, or too sensitive. We hadn't spoken in over a decade. Not since she stormed out of Thanksgiving after being mocked for crying when Grandpa's old watch was given to Ethan by mistake. I picked up cautiously. Her voice was steady, older, raspier. "Lauren, it's May. I heard what happened with the house." I sat down. "How?" "I still talk to Marlene, your mother's old coworker. She mentioned Ethan bragging about renovations. Said he finally convinced your dad to cut you out." I figured it was time. "Time for what?" "I need to tell you something. About the house. About your mother." And just like that, my breath stopped. She continued, voice steady but shaking in memory. "When your mother got sick, the first time, you remember." Of course I remembered. I'd taken unpaid leave. Slept in the chair beside her hospital bed for 9 nights. Missed the firm's annual bonus deadline because I was spoon-feeding Mom Jell-O and advocating for her when the nurses ignored her pain meds. Aunt May's voice softened. "What you don't know is she wanted you to have the house." I blinked. "What?" "She told me. In the kitchen, the night before her second biopsy. She said Lauren's the only reason this place still stands. If something happens to me, I want her to have it." My throat tightened. She said that. She made me promise to tell you if things ever turned cruel. Lauren, I failed her once by staying silent. I'm not doing it again. The weight of it all hit like bricks. She had wanted me to know. To feel chosen. And instead, they erased that wish like it never existed. Why didn't she tell Dad? She tried. He dismissed her. Said Ethan needed the support more than you. That you'd be fine. That line again. You'll be fine. Like stability was a curse. Like being dependable meant being dispensable. I hung up the phone and sat in silence for hours. Later that night, I dug out an old photo album, one of the few things I kept from the house. There was a picture of Mom and me planting tulips in the front yard. Her hair wrapped in a scarf. Chemo smile. That was the day she told me I made her proud. And now even in death, they'd taken her voice from me. I knew what I had to do. Not for revenge, but for truth. The next morning, I scheduled a meeting with a probate lawyer. I wasn't interested in suing. Not yet. I just needed to know my rights. And what I learned changed everything. Because guess what? Even if a house title was signed over, if part of the mortgage had been covered by someone else, especially repeatedly over time, there could be a case for unjust enrichment. The receipts I kept, they mattered, not just emotionally, legally. And more than that, there was no updated will. No documentation that Mom's wishes had been reviewed post-illness. And under state law, that could be challenged. Especially if there was testimony or sworn affidavits from someone like Aunt May. It wasn't about the house anymore. It was about erasure. They had rewritten the story. Cast me as the background character in a home I helped build. I didn't tell Ethan or Dad what I was doing. Let them live in their little echo chamber of entitlement. Instead, I focused on the paper trail, gathered old texts, transferred email confirmations, pulled up bank statements from when I'd paid the property taxes that one year Dad forgot. It all added up. At the end of that week, my lawyer drafted a formal notice of intent. It wasn't aggressive. It wasn't loud. It was just real. And I sent it certified straight to the address Ethan now bragged about remodeling. That same day, Dad called. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. His voice wasn't angry. It was something worse. Disappointed, as if I'd broken a sacred code by standing up for myself. "This isn't the way to handle family issues, Lauren. You should have talked to us. We're family. We don't threaten each other." But family did lie. Family did take. And when you finally say no, suddenly you're the traitor. I deleted the voicemail. A week passed, then another. No follow-up from Ethan. No texts. Just the lawyer forwarding me a message. "They are not interested in negotiating. My client believes this claim is without merit." And that was perfect. Because now I had their refusal in writing. So I moved to the next step, filing the claim. Not because I wanted the house, but because I wanted the truth recorded. On paper. In court. Where they couldn't spin it. And here's the thing, sometimes you don't win justice. Sometimes you just win peace. But peace begins with being heard. By the time the court date was set, I had stopped expecting apologies. They weren't coming. What surprised me was how calm I felt. Not vengeful, not anxious, just steady. I wasn't dragging anyone through the mud, I was just refusing to be buried in it. The hearing wasn't until mid-May, but the tension hit long before that. Whispers started circulating. Not among strangers, but through our own family circle. Cousin Jenna texted me out of nowhere. "Hey, weird question, are you suing Ethan over the house?" I stared at the message for a while before responding. "I'm pursuing a claim based on unpaid financial contributions and misrepresented agreements. It's not personal, it's about fairness." She read it. No reply. An hour later, I got a Facebook message from my uncle. "Whatever happened to family loyalty?" I didn't respond. Because that word loyalty was the weapon they'd always used to keep me silent. Help out. Don't cause drama. Be the bigger person. It was never loyalty. It was control. And now that I'd stepped outside of it, their illusion was cracking. I thought they'd hide from the attention. But Ethan, he went full performance mode. A week before the hearing, he posted a status. Imagine suing your own family after everything they've done for you. Some people only care about money, not blood. Dozens of comments flooded in. People who didn't know me, some who hadn't seen us in years. They all had an opinion. She's always been bitter. I knew something was off about her. I hope the court sees through the lies. And beneath all that, Mom's old friend Marlene commented one word. Careful. It was the only comment I hearted. Then came the dinner. Dad called me directly. He hadn't called in weeks. His voice was calmer this time. "We're having a small family dinner. Your cousin Josh is in town. Just a few of us. It'd be good if you came." I knew what it was. A setup. But part of me wanted to see them. Not to fight, not to win. Just to witness the shape of the thing I was walking away from. I wore navy, neutral, professional. And when I walked in, every head turned. They didn't expect me to show. "Lauren," Ethan said, smiling wide. "Didn't think we'd see you again." "I got the invite," I said, taking a seat at the edge of the table. Dad raised his glass. "Let's not make tonight about anything heavy." Which of course meant it would be exactly that. We ate in silence for a bit. Cousin Josh made small talk. Someone asked about my job. I gave a short, polite answer. Then Ethan spoke. "You know, it's just sad that something as sacred as Mom's house is being dragged into a legal mess." My fork hovered over my plate. I looked up. "You mean the house where I paid property taxes in 2017 and 2020? Fixed the water heater, covered utilities while you were in Costa Rica." His jaw twitched. "You act like we didn't do anything." I raised my voice slightly, not yelling, just letting the clarity cut through. "Do you have a single receipt?" Silence. "Because I do. $42,000 worth. Itemized. Dated, filed. I never asked for anything. Not until the thing I helped hold together was handed to you like a birthday gift." Dad spoke up low and tired. I told you. You have your own life, Lauren. You don't need the house." "And Ethan does," I asked. "He's trying to build something." I nodded slowly. So I was useful until I wasn't. That was when it hit. The quiet realization that they had never seen me as family in the way they saw him. I was support staff, not a daughter, not a sister, just a source of reliability. I stood up. "I didn't come here to fight. I came here to see if any of you remembered who I was. Turns out you don't." And I left. 2 days later, my lawyer called. "We've been contacted. Their side wants to settle." I blinked. "What?" "They're offering a cash settlement in exchange for dropping the case. No admission of wrongdoing. Just closure." I asked for the amount. It was generous. More than I expected. Not just reimbursement, it included damages. I sat with it for a day. And then I said no. Because this wasn't about a payout. It was about making the truth official. If I took the settlement, the paperwork would be sealed. No testimony, no statement, no record of what had been erased. And so I walked into court 3 weeks later, alone, wearing the same navy blue. Ethan had a lawyer and Dad sitting beside him. They avoided eye contact. When I took the stand, I wasn't emotional. I was clear. I presented every document, every bank statement, every photo of repairs I'd funded, receipts I'd kept, texts confirming they needed help, and I helped. And then Aunt May. She took the stand with hands trembling but voice like steel. She confirmed Mom's wishes, the conversations, the intention to give the house to me. she cried afterward. Not from sadness, but relief. We left the courtroom quiet. No verdict that day. It would take a week. And in that time, something shifted inside me. For the first time in my life, I had nothing to prove. No guilt to carry, no silence to perform. Whatever the court decided, I had said what needed to be said, and they heard it. The email came on a Thursday morning. No fanfare, no dramatic phone call, just a subject line. Decision, Reed v. Reed. Summary of findings. I opened it, read slowly, twice. The court acknowledged my documented financial contributions, recognized the unjust enrichment, upheld the legitimacy of Aunt May's testimony, and awarded me a partial stake in the property along with reimbursement for the costs I had incurred. They didn't give me the house, but they gave me something far more important: recognition. The legal language was dry, but tucked inside those paragraphs was a message I hadn't heard in years. You were right. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding, and for the first time in months, I smiled. Not in triumph, not in spite, just relief. That evening, I got a call from a blocked number. I answered on instinct. Lauren, Dad said quietly. I saw the ruling. I didn't speak. I didn't think it would get this far, he continued. Didn't realize how much you'd been holding on to. I wasn't holding anything, I replied. I was carrying it. And I finally decided to put it down. He was quiet. I never meant to make you feel left out. You didn't make me feel anything I said. You just didn't see it. All of it. All of me. Another pause. Well, I hope this gives you peace. I nodded more to myself than to him. It does. He hung up. No apology. Just closure in his own broken way. And I took it for what it was. A week later, Ethan texted me. Not to talk. To vent. You really burned the bridge. Hope it was worth it. I didn't reply. Because the truth is, the bridge had been crumbling long before I lit the match, and all I did was stop pretending it could hold weight. But even as I moved forward, the ripples continued. Aunt May called me one evening. I've been thinking about that day in court, she said. I was terrified to speak, but afterward, something changed. In you, I asked. No, in our family. She told me 2 cousins had reached out to her, people who hadn't spoken to her in years. They said watching her testify gave them courage. That they remembered things now. Moments of silence. Dismissals. Patterns. It's like your voice gave permission for others to remember theirs, she said. That stuck with me, because for so long I thought my silence was strength, that keeping the peace meant preserving love. But all it did was reinforce the idea that I didn't matter, that my love was expected, not earned, that my boundaries were optional. And once I reclaimed them, once I said enough, I became real. To myself. 2 months passed. The reimbursement check arrived in the mail. Clean, simple, no note. I deposited it, not to celebrate, but to remind myself I was never asking for more. I was asking for equal. That same week, I got a letter in the mail, handwritten, from Mom's best friend Marlene. Inside was a photo. Me and Mom sitting on the front porch of the house. She was laughing. I was about 8. On the back, Marlene had written, "Your mother wanted you to have this. She told me you were the strong one, the one who held things together when no one noticed. I see it now. I think she always did." I cried. Not the loud kind, the silent, breathless kind that leaves you empty and whole at the same time. Because that photo wasn't proof. It was permission to grieve, to let go, to forgive, but not forget. I framed it, put it on my shelf next to the lavender plant I'd been growing since spring. Something about seeing it bloom reminded me growth doesn't ask for permission. It just reaches. And I was reaching too. But growth also means learning when to prune. So I made one final decision. I sold my apartment, took the reimbursement, added my savings, and bought a small fixer-upper on the edge of town. Not out of spite, not to compete, but because I wanted a space that was mine. Built with honesty, decorated in dignity. The day I got the keys, I stood in the doorway and whispered, "This time no one gets to erase me." A few days later, I was walking through the backyard, ankle deep in leaves, planting what they told me. I thought you were just bitter or overreacting, but After seeing how you carried yourself, how calm you stayed, I get it now. I exhaled slowly. Thank you. She paused. Would you ever want to talk maybe coffee? And maybe, just maybe, something new was blooming. Not reconciliation, but recognition. And that was enough. It's been 6 months. Sometimes I still wake up early on Sundays and instinctively check my phone, half expecting to see a grocery list from Dad or a cryptic "Can you transfer a little from Ethan?" But the screen stays quiet. And strangely, that silence no longer feels like exile. It feels like peace. I've filled the quiet with things I used to push aside. Long walks after work. Mornings without rushing. The sound of rain hitting my new roof uninterrupted by obligation. The house I bought, it's still a work in progress. The plumbing hums a little when I run both taps. The back door creaks when the wind's just right. But it's mine. Every flaw is mine to fix, not to defend. I painted the guest room soft green. Hung up art I never had space for before. I even started planting lavender in the front yard, a callback to the plant on my shelf, the one I'd brought over from the apartment like an old friend. It's thriving now. So am I. The family. I still don't talk to Ethan, and I'm okay with that. We had a final exchange after the verdict, a short, bitter text where he told me I'd turned on my own blood. I never answered. Because when someone sees your boundaries as betrayal, you don't owe them a seat at your table. Even if you built the table yourself. Dad. We speak occasionally, holidays, birthdays. The calls are short, surface level. And while the ache of what we never had still stings, I've learned to stop picking at the wound. You can't bleed forever trying to make someone notice. Sometimes healing is simply walking past the people who never turned to see you standing there. But there's light too. Aunt May visits once a month now. We sit on the porch and drink tea. Sometimes we talk about Mom. Sometimes we sit in silence, both understanding that presence doesn't always need noise to be meaningful. She brought over an old recipe box from Mom's kitchen last time. Said she'd kept it safe just in case. Inside, I found a folded piece of paper, yellowed with time, but unmistakably Mom's handwriting. It wasn't a letter, it was a grocery list. But at the top, she'd scribbled, "Lauren, don't forget to take care of yourself, too." I held it for a long time. Sometimes love doesn't come as declarations. Sometimes it shows up in the small reminders left behind by people who saw your worth when no one else did. That was Mom. Quiet, protective in ways only I now understand. I framed that note. Put it by my front door. Every time I leave the house now, I see it. And every time I nod back like she's still watching. A few weeks ago, I bumped into Marlene, Mom's old friend, at a farmer's market. She hugged me like no time had passed. "You look lighter," she said. I smiled. "I feel lighter." She leaned in. "You know your mother would have been proud. Not because you fought, but because you stood." And that hit deep. Because for years I thought standing up meant tearing down. That pushing back would make me cruel. But it didn't. It made me visible. I used to think my value came from how little I needed, how much I could absorb without complaint. But now, I know my value is in what I no longer tolerate. I don't tolerate being spoken over. I don't tolerate being remembered only when it's convenient. And I don't tolerate the belief that my loyalty is owed no matter how I'm treated. I walk differently now. Not in anger, but in ownership. Last week, I hosted my first dinner in the new house. Just 4 people, Aunt May, cousin Jenna, Marlene, and me. We laughed, talked about everything and nothing. There was no drama, no guilt-shaded silence, only warmth. At one point, Jenna reached across the table. "I've been reading more about boundaries," she said. "Wish I'd known sooner. I'm sorry it took watching you go through that to understand." I looked her in the eye. "Better late than never," I said softly. "Most of us aren't taught that we're allowed to choose peace over loyalty." She nodded. "Still, you're braver than you think." Maybe, but it wasn't bravery that carried me. It was years of swallowing hurt. Years of being useful, invisible, and taken for granted. Until one day I just couldn't anymore. And now I don't have to. Because I left. Not in rage. Not in flames. Just in quiet decision. I didn't burn it all down. I just stepped away. And what I found on the other side wasn't vengeance. It was myself. Final reflections. If you've ever been the one who always helped, the one who stayed silent, the one who held the family together while no one held you, let me say this: you don't owe anyone your peace. And walking away isn't betrayal when staying means losing yourself. Family isn't blood. It's truth. It's reciprocity. It's people who see you and stand beside you not just when it's convenient, but when it's necessary. I didn't get justice from them. I got it from me. I stopped explaining. I stopped hoping they'd suddenly change. And I started choosing what honors the version of me who endured so much quietly. That's who I did this for. Her. Me. Now. And I'm finally home.